Everybody. Welcome teachers and students across New Zealand. It's great to have you all here for our Wonder Talk. We just want to do a little bit of housekeeping first up. If you could just check in the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a wee chat button. If somebody wouldn't mind sending a wee message in that just to make sure that you can hear us, that would be fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. Wonderful. Next to the chat button, there's a Q&A button. This is where you can pop any questions in, and after Sarah's done her presentation, we will be taking some questions. If you don't get a chance to ask your question, then your teacher will be able to email the Wonder Project after the talk, and we'll do our best to find those answers for you. Just one more thing before we start. You'll notice the little camera boxes on your screen. You can actually click on them and move them if they are blocking any of the visuals. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Sarah Cross from Plant and Food. Take it away, Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. So my name is Sarah Cross, and I've been asked to do a little talk about my extremely exciting STEM-based job. So I am a beekeeper. So I work for a place called Plant and Food Research, which is based at Ruakura here in Hamilton. And I have a super flash name for being a beekeeper. I am a research associate in the apiculture department of the bee biology and productivity team. So it's a big long title, but basically I get to wear a bee suit every day and look at honeybees, which is super, super exciting. And so the bees that I look after, I have about 100 beehives. And so I get to keep them safe and keep them healthy. And then we take those beehives and we run trials and experiments to make sure that the things that we are doing are keeping them healthy and keeping them safe. So we have to double check ourselves. So some of the other stuff we do here at Plant and Food. So I work with the bees, but Plant and Food is a big company around New Zealand and also around the world. And we do loads of different things to do with anything to do with the foods that we eat. So as I mentioned, I do the things about pollination and honeybee health. So remember that bees pollinate all of our food. So that's why we have the bees here, and we do research to make sure that they're pollinating things the way that we want and making them better pollinators, which is exciting. We do lots of work about the food that we eat and growing better food. So more nutrition in the food and also growing more food. So we can obviously, there's lots of people in the world that need to eat. And along the same lines of food, we do work on fishing nets to make sure that the fish nets that we are using are not catching all the little fish, but only the right size fish, and making sure that fishing is sustainable, which means that the fish that we catch, we're making sure there's enough left for the next generation. We also make new fruit types, which sounds a bit strange, but we, Plant and Food, help Zespri to make new kiwi fruit varieties. So I'm sure you've seen in the supermarket, we have the fluffy green kiwi fruit, and we've also got the gold kiwi fruit that has no fluff. Plant and Food have just helped make a new kiwi fruit that's red. So we've actually made a whole new type of fruit, which is pretty exciting. We also have a whole department called bioprotection, which means they are helping to make sure that the pests and diseases around the world don't come into New Zealand and destroy any of our food. And we also make really cool new technology for the things that we do for processing food. So remember, the food is picked and then it's packaged and then it's sorted and then it's put into boxes. And so all those things, they make new technology to make those things easier and better for us to get out to the shops. So there's some pretty cool things. So I was just going to tell you how I got to where I am. So when I was a little girl, I loved insects and bugs. I actually still love insects and bugs, even though I'm grown up. And so when I was about 7 or 8, I learned that there are people in the world that do bug things for a living, and those people are called entomologists. And so entomology is the scientific study of insects. And so when I was little, I thought that's what I want to do when I grow up. And so I actually went to university and I gained a Bachelor of Science degree. And the things that I liked at university the most were biology, which is a very broad subject, but there's lots of little things in biology that I did, like freshwater study. So basically we study how the stream moves and what lives in the water in the streams. I also did some cool things in geography. So geography is like where things are in the world, and maps and things like that. And I really liked that part of biology. And through my work here at Plant and Food and all the other bug places that I've worked around New Zealand, the coolest thing I've actually just done recently, and I've actually written 2 books about bees. And so it's sort of how to show people how to get better at beekeeping, because lots of people have beehives in their backyard now. So you guys might even know someone or even have a beehive on your farm or on your backyard. And so I've written a book to help people maybe get a bit better at keeping their bees alive in the backyard. And a big lesson that I've learned in science is things don't always go to plan. So I am one of those people that plans lots of things, and I write lots of lists and I make myself plans. But quite often things don't go to plan. I was just saying before that I wanted to go beekeeping today, but of course I've come to work and it's raining, so I can't go beekeeping. So straight away my plans have gone out the window. So you have to make sure that even though you plan for things, you have to make sure you have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C, and you have to have a plan for if things go wrong, because they quite often do. Some of the key STEM skills that I use every day. A STEM skill that I use is maths. Maths is a big one. Now, I'm not very good at maths and I don't particularly like maths, but luckily I have a calculator on my phone, and I also have lots of people here at work that are very good at maths. So if I get stuck, all I have to do is ask. Because you've got to remember, there's lots of people here at Plant and Food that have lots of different levels of skills. And there's someone that always knows a little bit more than you, so you can always go and ask them for some help. And so beekeeping, of course, is also a STEM skill. And there's lots of engineering as well that goes into beekeeping. So engineering is making new things. So if I'm out in the field on my beehive and something breaks, I need to know how to fix it, and I need to know where that fits into the hive and things like that. Along with it is team working, because obviously beekeeping can sometimes be a little bit dangerous because I might get stung. So I need to always go out there with another person to make sure that if something happens or if someone gets stung, there's always someone else there to give you first aid and to look after you. So we always work in teams. Another thing that I've got there is working in limited time frames. So one of the things we do, remember I talked about kiwi fruit. So when kiwi fruit is pollinated by the bees, that means when the flowers come out and the bee comes along and collects the pollen and moves it to different flowers. In kiwi fruit, the kiwi fruit flowers are only open for about 10 days. That's it for the whole entire year. That's the only time there are flowers. And so we have to do lots of work on those flowers to pollinate them in only 10 days time. So we have to work in very limited time frames. So there's lots of different skills that we use there throughout the year. Now, it says here, one thing I wish I knew at your age before pursuing a STEM career. Don't rush. Now, I told you that I have a Bachelor of Science degree, but I actually went to university straight after high school when I was 18. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I wasn't really I wasn't ready for university, and I actually failed. I went to university at 18 and I didn't get a degree at 18, and I actually failed. And I had to go away and think about what I really wanted to do. And I did lots of other jobs. And then I actually went back to university when I was 26 years old. So I didn't get my degree until I was 30. And now I'm doing the greatest job in the world, and I get to play with bees every day. So don't rush. Just because if you don't know what you want to do right now, or even when you're 30, if you don't know what you want to do, it's okay. There's loads of other things in the world, and everything that you do gets you experience. So don't rush into anything. So, and also don't worry if you fail. I learned lots of things even from failing. So don't even worry if you fail. As long as you learn something, then you're okay. And just remember that science is everywhere. And one of the things that I sort of forgot to do at university and didn't realize that I would have helped him was chemistry. Now, chemistry is everywhere. Chemistry is the basis of what everything is made from. And so that's one of the things that maybe I should have done at university. It doesn't matter. Like I said, lots of people here have lots of chemistry skills. So I just asked them if I need the answer. So very important there. Bees are cool. Don't forget that. So every day I go out beekeeping and I do some very, very cool things with my bees. And I love to show people bees as well. So moral of the story, I love my job. And so don't rush into anything. It's so amazing that you can get your dream job if you just take the steps to get there. So very exciting. Now we're going to move into some questions. So as we mentioned, there's a Q&A button there. So if you want to type some questions in about anything at all, about bees or about me or about science, and I will bring them up and we can read them out. Cool.
Sarah, while we're waiting, maybe you could tell us how many bees do you think there are in New Zealand?
Oh my goodness. Millions and billions. So in one little beehive, just one box of bees has around about 30,000 bees. And so 30,000 bees in only one box. And then there's thousands and thousands and thousands of boxes of bees all around New Zealand. So there would be literally millions. All right, we've got some little questions around here. The first one, it says, what is the average life of a bee? So the life of a bee actually changes. So a queen bee, so remember in a hive, if you've got one beehive, you've got one queen bee and then thousands and thousands of worker bees. And the worker bees are all ladies. So every bee that you see flying around collecting nectar and honey and pollen, they are all girl bees. And they're doing all the work. And so in the summertime, if you see them flying around collecting nectar, they're working so hard and so fast that they only live from the time they hatch out to the time they sadly die is actually only about 3 weeks because they're working so hard. Have you ever heard the term as busy as a bee? That's what that means. It means they're working so hard and so fast that they actually don't live for very long, only about 3 weeks. But in the wintertime, like now, they're not doing very much. They're just staying at home and they're snuggling to keep warm, and they're not collecting very much nectar or pollen because there's not much out there. And they can live for the whole of winter in their hive. So that's 3 months. So that's a big difference. So in the middle of summer, about 3 weeks, and in the middle of winter, about 3 months. So it's a big change. And we've got another question there. It says, do you get to travel around New Zealand for your job? I do. I actually also get to travel around the world, actually. We did quite a bit of work in Australia for the macadamia industry. So the delicious little macadamia nuts that we buy here in New Zealand, I got to go to Australia and try and help them to make their plants pollinate better so we could get better macadamia nuts, which was quite exciting. But I also get to travel around New Zealand a lot as well because we do lots of work on kiwi fruit and different kind of fruit and vegetables and stuff around New Zealand. And we have quite a few departments. We have one in Auckland, down in Lincoln and Alexandra, and all around New Zealand we have lots of different plant and food places. So yeah, we get to travel quite a bit. Someone's asked there, is Manuka health good for your health? It is good for your health. Manuka is what's called, it has antibacterial properties. So they've proven in a scientific lab that Manuka honey can kill diseases and kill bugs. But you have to remember that it's really only when it sort of touches the bug. So it's better if you put honey on your skin rather than eating it, because once it goes into your body, the enzymes in your stomach eat the Manuka and don't make it sort of as good as it would be if you just put it on your skin. So that's why here in New Zealand we have actually got medical grade bandages and plasters that have Manuka honey in them, because they've proven that it's really good to keep bugs and germs and stuff out. So that's pretty cool. Someone's asked there, how do bees mate? So there's one queen in the hive and she actually mates while she's flying. So she flies out, and then the boys bees in the hive, which are called drones, and there's not very many drones. There'll probably be only like maybe 1,000 drones, and there'll be like 60,000 worker bees. So 60,000 females and only about 1,000 boy bees called drones. And those drones, their only job is to mate with her. That's it. They don't do any other work. They don't collect any nectar or pollen or anything, and they stay in the hive and eat all the honey while the ladies do all the work. And so those boy bees, they actually look different. and they've got much bigger eyes, and that's because their job is to fly out and see, to find the queen and mate with her. So they've got big eyes so they can see her. And so they do what's called a mating flight, and they will go up in a big sort of ball of bees, and they will all mate together. And once the queen is mated, that means she can go back to her hive and start laying eggs and lay more females. So that's how I do that one. The next question says, how long have you been researching about bees for? So I worked at lots of different other jobs to do with insects, because I love bugs and insects, all of them, even the gross ones like the slugs and the spiders. I love them all. And so I've done lots of work about other insects, but I've only worked here at Plant on Food for about 7 years. So as soon as I walked in the door here, I was in charge of 100 beehives. And do you know what? I had never even been inside a beehive before I got this job. So that just shows that all the experience before this, even though it wasn't to do with bees, it was to do with science and things to do with insects. And so they let me come in and look after 100 beehives, even though I'd never even opened a beehive. So that's pretty exciting. But I've been here doing bee work for 7 years. But my boss, who is the most famous bee scientist in New Zealand, he's done it for 38 years, I think. He's been doing the same job, bees, for 38 years. Not me, I've only been doing it 7. Someone's asked, why are they black and yellow? Do you know? I don't actually know. I actually do not know why they're black and yellow, but I do know that in the insect world, if you're a bright color, like bright red or bright orange or bright yellow, that usually means danger. Like watch out, either means that they're poisonous or that they are dangerous, like they have a stinger. Like if you think about the monarch butterfly, bright orange, that's because monarch butterflies and their caterpillars, remember the monarch caterpillars are also yellow and black, they're actually poisonous to birds. And so it's one of those things that maybe that's why the bee is also yellow, kind of like a wasp. Actually, a wasp is much brighter, but I think it's more of a warning to say that it's watch out for that yellow color, because it actually is quite dangerous and could get you. So it's to stop them being eaten, I think. So to trick the bees into the birds and stuff to know that they're not safe to eat. I've got a funny question. It says, can bees vomit? Yeah, they can definitely vomit, because I hate to break this to you, but honey is actually bee spit. So a bee that flies out and collects nectar from a flower comes back to the hive and then spits that nectar from its mouth into another bee's mouth. And then that bee spits it into another bee's mouth, and then that bee. So they're basically, honey is actually just bee spit. So it's kind of the same as vomiting, because they're purposely taking it from their little, they've got a special stomach just for honey, just for nectar. So it doesn't get digested, it just holds it in there in their special little honey stomach, and then they vomit it back up into another bee's mouth. So yes, bees can definitely vomit. Yep, okay, so someone just asked, out of the 30,000 bees in the one hive, is there only one queen? And that's correct. Each hive can only have one queen. And if you get more than one queen, quite a few things will happen. One of them is that if the old queen realizes that another queen has just hatched, that queen will chase the other one away. And it will actually, that's how a hive swarms. So if you've ever seen a big bee swarm flying around, there's one queen in there with lots and lots of bees. And so that queen in there is actually the old queen. And so she's taken about half the beehive, half the bees away, and she's flown away to run away from the new queen. Because if a queen and another queen meet, they will actually fight. And so we know that, I'm sure you know that if a bee stings you, that bee dies, because it actually sadly rips out parts of its stomach and it can't live. But queen bees, they can sting as many times as they want, kind of like a wasp. And that's so that if they meet each other, they fight to the death, which is pretty exciting. Someone's asked, how many types of bees are there? I'm not entirely sure what you mean. I'm not sure if you mean in the hive or sort of in the world, but in the world, if you're talking about species of bees, there's hundreds and hundreds. In New Zealand, we only have one type of bee that makes honey, and that's the genus and species is Apis mellifera. So that's the type of honeybee that we have. But we also have about 37 species of native bees. So if you Google them, they're very cool. Most of them are black and some of them are little teeny tiny. But around the world, there's also hundreds and thousands of species of different bees. Lots of them we don't have in New Zealand. But if you're talking about in a beehive, There's the queen bee, so there's only one of her. There's the worker bees, which are the females, and they do all the work. And there's also the boy bees that we call the drones. They do very little work, and they only mate with the queen. So in one hive, there's 3 different types. They're all the same species, yet they're 3 different types of bees. So I hope that answers the question.
So Sarah, we'll take one more question. These are amazing questions. Thank you. We'll take one more question before we wrap up.
Very cool. I've got 4 on the screen there. I'm going to be rude and just pick one, but I love this question. It says, who inspired you to do what you love? And that was actually my dad. So when I was young, all the things I remember about my dad were going on the farm and basically looking for bugs. And we would roll over logs, and we would look in streams, and we would climb trees, and we would always find really exciting bugs. And we would take them back inside. And he actually got me a microscope when I was quite young. I don't know where he got it from, but I learned how to look at things under the microscope. And if you know how exciting it is to hold a bug in your hand, you should see what they look like under the microscope. They're absolutely amazing, and they look completely different. And some of them are like fluffy, and you didn't know they were fluffy, or they're sort of different colors. And I loved having that microscope that my dad got me, and I got to look at bugs all the time. So yeah, I would put this all down to my dad for coming and hunting on the farm for bugs with me. But still, my favorite insect used to be a weevil, but now I have to say it's the bees. They're my favorite.
That's fabulous. Good old dad. Sarah, thank you so much for giving up your time this morning to speak to all our wonderful students, and just an amazing presentation. We've got some fantastic questions.
Yeah.
Please, if there's more questions, if the teachers can email through to the Wonder Project inbox, we'll do our best to get Sarah to answer them. Maybe we'll refer to your book, Sarah. But thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Fantastic, and thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. I hope you learned something, and I promise to answer all the questions that I can.
Enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.